Thank you, Graham, for having me here as your keynote speaker. I wish the situation is different and we could have all met in person in San Antonio, a city that's really nice. I visited once and have a chance to meet people, but we're making the best out of it. So thank you for having me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are. Thank you for coming to this session. Today, I want to talk about how we can help address one of the crises we have in cybersecurity, which is talent shortage. I believe that by focusing on mindset, it's one way, very viable way, and very effective way for us to help solve the talent shortage in cybersecurity. Before I talk about this topic, let me first tell you a little bit about me. I grew up in China during Cultural Revolution. During that time, there weren't a lot of formal education going on. We studied a lot of political articles and works. Then I spent 15 years studying or doing research in physics. I got into physics because I couldn't stand people telling me I could not do physics because I was a girl. And I went all the way till Berkeley. I got my PhD there. And it was after that I felt that I had proven to myself as well as others that I was smart enough to do physics. And that was a time when I was trying to then figure out what I wanted to do, what I loved doing, and what my passion was. And I decided I would make a career switch from the academic world, science world, into the business world. The first place I went was McKinsey & Company, and which I will talk about later, my transition and how I think is actually quite applicable in the situation here of trying to solve the cybersecurity talent shortage. I spent 3.5 years at McKinsey, had my second baby there. I started there with a 6-month-old infant. Kind of a crazy thing to do, but you know, that makes life interesting. I then worked at 6 different companies, startups. The earliest stage of startup was 20 people in the garage. And I have worked, biggest company was like 1,000 people. In the variety of different roles, I was very lucky that I always held very impactful roles. You know, I reported to the CEO, I was CFO, I was CTO, I was COO in different companies several times, and really gave me a very broad exposure to these different areas, allowed me to learn a lot of things. About 2 years ago, I joined Offensive Security as CEO. This is my first time CEO, and I'm loving it. This is a picture of me. This is in Hawaii on Mauna Kea, where there are a lot of telescopes. And this is during the time I was a postdoc at Caltech. And I would say that's a highlight of my physics career. I loved the years spending there. And I was going to Hawaii every month, helping with observations in one of the observatories, and really had a great time. And it was from there, Caltech, that I actually made the transition from academia into business. So we talked about the cybersecurity talent gap, and some people call it a crisis in the industry, or to some extent that we would say it's a crisis for all of us, not just cybersecurity. And this crisis, no matter how you look at it, it's pretty daunting. You know, you can look at all the different sources, and this is a one magazine article I pulled up, and it shows that by 2021, that will be next year, there will be 3.5 million jobs in cybersecurity that will not be filled. What the exact number is, I don't think we really will know precisely, but I think we all agree that there are a lot of jobs that are hard to fill in cybersecurity. I don't know what your situation is and how easy it is for you to hire people. Even at OffSec, when we want to hire, you know, skilled people, people with the relevant experience and knowledge and the mindset, it is very hard. So what do we do? And So to prepare for this talk, I quickly went on LinkedIn just to check it out. And here are the few job titles in security I punched in, and sure enough, you could see there are tens or hundreds of thousands of open positions for the various titles in security. So there's no denial the fact that we don't have enough qualified people for the number of positions that we have, or open positions we have in cybersecurity. And you know, if the situation is already bad, I think it's going to get much worse. And I think the pandemic is also going to make it much worse. Here is one survey that I looked up, and I have heard it anecdotally already, which is that because there's so many data breaches, it's no longer, I firmly believe it's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when. And I think people will get breached. And we need to do the best we can, but we also need to be prepared that that could happen to any one of us. The good thing is that it is on the agenda, top of mind for many CEOs. Here is a PwC survey that says more than half of the CEOs think cybersecurity, cyber threat is an important thing that they need to focus on and need to be on their agenda. I certainly have seen and heard many of the board meetings where cybersecurity, how we deal with security, what's our processes, what's our hiring, and is it important enough? It is on the agenda of the board and top executives. That is really a good thing, because that means with that kind of focus, we're going to get more support, we're going to get more resources, we're going to get more budget, we can hire more people. That's going to make the talent shortage even a harder problem for us to solve. And then recently, the last 6 months during pandemic, we all know how many people changed from working from the office to working from home, and how much went online from the physical world to the digital world. I think the pandemic is going to accelerate the digitization of our lives, not just how we work, that's a big part of it, but also how we live, the whole civilization. I think more and more of what we live with, you know, our lives are going to become digital. Coming with that is going to be more cyber threat. There'll be more need for cyber professionals. And in fact, during the pandemic, we're seeing certainly more phishing and other type of cyber threat activities that happen all over the world. So I think the talent shortage in cybersecurity is going to accelerate. How are you going to deal with it? Okay, one way we can deal with it is to say, hey, need to hire more people. Maybe we just lower the bar of the hiring. And then if we do that, we're going to get more people in, problem solved. But that doesn't work. We all know that. And because security is not something just going through the motion. Doing security well means you need to think on your feet. You need to be able to solve problems critically. You need to look at the situation, say, what do you do? Because every situation is different. So even though you could say that, but this really would not work for security. The other option we can do is that, okay, we don't have enough qualified people who can come in and do the job day one, but maybe we can find people. We can find people who have the characteristics that are needed to succeed in security. We find them, we get them in, we train them, and then we continue to train them on the job. And that might be a way to do it. And I actually think the second way is a very viable way to do that. And that my transition to business from academia actually went through a very similar story, which I will talk about in more detail later. But to know what kind of people have the potential to succeed in cybersecurity, we need to know what are those mindsets or traits of people that we need. To know that, let's look at the challenge or the problem we're trying to solve in cybersecurity. What are we trying to do? What we're trying to do is we're trying to either prevent and we'll be able to mitigate these data breaches or breaches. If we just take a quick look at a few of the breaches, that happen to big names, the big brands, and many of them actually consider security as a top priority already. Twitter is a very recent one. We have Equifax a few years ago, and we have Uber also a few years ago, and Target. What we see in common, these are just a few examples. In fact, there are even more examples we can list. What we see in common in these breaches is every breach is different. It's not like the criminals, they employ the same tactics and same technique and just apply it everywhere. Sure, that happens, but a lot of them that doesn't happen, okay? And it's all different. And that is what we're fighting against. That is the kind of people we need to fight against these kind of things. So what does that mean? It means when we think about security, we're thinking about fighting against the cyber criminals. When we think about the cyber criminals, what are their characteristics? They're creative, they're organized, okay? And they persevere. They don't give up easily. They are patient, and they wait until they see the time and the hole they can get in. And they're very practical, they're very results and the impact focused. They know exactly what they want to achieve, and they focus on that. And most of all, they exploit the human weakness. Security problem is not just, it's in fact not the problem of systems or code. Those are very logical. It's the humans that program those to do what we want them to do. But because we are humans, humans are not machines, we make mistakes. And when we make those mistakes, that's when they take advantage and get in and penetrate into our systems and network, and then steal the data, steal other things from us. These are the people we fight against. To fight against them, we need people with very similar mindsets. We need people who have curiosity. They're creative thinkers, creative problem solvers. They have grit, can't just give up easily. And they're passionate about security. These, I believe, are the key traits of somebody who can succeed in cybersecurity. So how do we find people like that? Now, I want to share my personal journey of how I went from being a scientist, a physicist, to being somebody in business, and that transition, how I went through with McKinsey. And this is through my personal story, my personal journey, that it made me think this is a viable way that we can do it for cybersecurity talent shortage. And I'm sure I'm not the first one that have thought about it, but I want to take this chance to amplify this message, to get more people to think about it and maybe to act on it. So I think by finding and then training the right kind of people, we can solve this problem. But with that, I want to take a pause here and share my story, how I went from academia into business. And there may be something we can learn from that in this, in this new pursuit of finding talent into cybersecurity. I joined McKinsey at the time McKinsey was going through fast growth. They faced a similar challenge, which is that they couldn't find enough qualified people. They were traditionally hiring from top business schools. And they said, in order to grow and hire more people, we have two options. One is we go to the next level business school. We hire people who have already gone to business school, but the next level. Or we can go to other disciplines, science, engineering, law, medicine, advanced degree professionals, still remain at the top tier. And we get those people who we believe have the characteristics to succeed at McKinsey, and we train them. We train them at the beginning, we train them on the job. McKinsey decided to pursue the second path, and has been very successful. And it was through that program I joined McKinsey. So in the case of McKinsey, they decided there are 4 traits that are really important. It is problem solving, communication, teamwork, and growth mindset. Of the four, the most critical was problem solving. Then the question is, how do you find people that you think have strong problem solving skills and then also have other skills where if not, you think you can train them on the job? Now I want to share my interview process. Some of those I didn't know when I was going through. Some of those I learned after I joined. The interview process, I went through 12 interviews before I got the offer at McKinsey. And each interview is about 50 minutes long. And those interviews were organized into 3 different batches and over the course of 4 months. And every interview, in my case, is 11 out of the 12 interviews. So almost all the interviews would have a real business case. And some cases, like in one of my interviews, I got 3 cases in one interview. And McKinsey used real business case to test your problem solving skills. In fact, they knew people like me did not know enough about business, would not know the terminology or how to think about all the different frameworks. So at the beginning of the interview, when they gave us the case, they would say, I actually don't care about you getting to the right answer, just want to know how you think. It's the thinking process that they want to see to determine if you are a strong problem solver or not. The other thing they did is that the interviews, like in some cases, in one morning, I would have 4 interviews and they're back to back. And later on, I found out part of the reason they do that is because, or they did that, I don't know if they still do that, but they did that, is because they wanted to know your critical thinking, your creative problem solving skills, how well you can do that under stress, because that is another important skill they want to see people having, okay? So this is how McKinsey did in figuring out how to find the people with the mindset and the skills that they believe are needed to succeed at McKinsey. Now, after I got a job, when I first started there, I had a 6-month-old baby, which is really crazy. But when I first started there, during the first month, I was sent away for 1 month of full-time training in a different city, different state, away from home, so I can be focused. And it's called a mini MBA. It was 1 month. It was full-time. I was paid. We were in a hotel together. There's a group, about 40 of us from all over the world, people with similar background like me, engineers, PhD in engineering, science, or JD in law, from law school, or even medical doctors. It was taught, that mini MBA 1 month was taught by world-class business school professors, as well as practitioners. In my case, the corporate finance was a professor taught by somebody from INSEAD. I loved his 1 week of corporate finance class. I learned cash is king. And for strategy, it was taught by the CEO of PepsiCo. And at the time, he was a McKinsey director, and he came and taught our class for 2 or 3 days. And it was so great to learn strategy from somebody who had to run a big company business and having to make a lot of critical strategic decisions. For him to share his thinking process of how he and his team went through and making some of these important strategic decisions. So it's very different from just reading textbooks. The theory of how to do strategy is very real. Okay. And then we had many breakout sessions where we would work on a strategy. We'll come and pitch and then try to see how to do things. And then we also had training on interpersonal communication skills. That was the first time I was exposed to personality test Myers-Briggs and learned, innately people actually are different. There are people who are more thinking versus feeling, people who are more organized versus not. It's not right or wrong. It's just we are different as human beings. And when you're aware of that, and then you will be more in tune when you communicate with people, when you want to influence people. And that was eye-opening for me. I never heard about those things as a scientist. I was such a nerd. not only they taught us this theory, gave us the tools, they also videotaped us. They put us into role play to have us practice and learn how to use these in real situations. It's not possible we learn everything in a month, but we were exposed to important concepts, some terminologies, some practices during that 1 month. And then after that, I started getting on real engagements, working alongside my colleagues who had gone to business school and or others who have gotten PhD in other fields. And it was really great because I got this boost of training at the beginning. I started working and then continued to learn on the job. And then throughout my time at McKinsey, I had additional training to help me do the job even better. So my process of transitioning from academia into business and the way I did it with McKinsey, for which I am forever grateful, it made me think that it's a really good way to do it. And if you find the right people, you have the right process, and be willing to make the investment, is something it can really work and work very well. And today there's so many very successful people that went into McKinsey with background like me, ended up running other companies. You know, so it's really great and satisfying to see. So what do we do with cybersecurity? You know, let's say we take that and say, how do we apply in cybersecurity? I think cybersecurity in some sense actually is easier because cybersecurity itself is not really a thing. It's not cybersecurity is for cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is the security of the things we do and the security of the things we use. Is the firewalls we put up, is the network we build, is the servers we operate, the codes we use, the systems we use, the processes we put together. So already there are people who are very knowledgeable in those areas. And some of those are interested in security, and some of them have the characteristic or the traits that can succeed well in security. In fact, a lot of the security people did not start out in security. They started out as system admins, or network engineers, or web developers. So already we're seeing that, but I think that we can be even more proactive and do more of that to solve the talent shortage. I wanted to now share some examples. These are successful cybersecurity professionals, and they got into security from different backgrounds. And these are the people over the years I have met and got to know. And I just want to share their successful success stories. So to see, you know, if we were faced with situations like this, what would we do? Can we think differently, do differently, and actually accelerate getting more people into cybersecurity? Before OffSec, I worked at HackerOne. HackerOne operates a bug bounty platform, and a lot of companies run bug bounty programs on HackerOne. And then that means also we got a lot of good hackers throughout the world on HackerOne. I want to share two examples of the hackers I have gotten to know over the years. The first one is Try to Hack. He is based in Argentina, and he is the first one to earn $1 million of bounty on the HackerOne platform. He started hacking, where he got into security when he was in high school, and he actually didn't know anything about it, but he got interested in it. And he learned the way that a lot of people learn these days. He went on Google, he read a lot of blogs, he joined some communities to see what information he can learn from that. And then he watched the YouTube videos. So it was all active learning by himself, using the resources available on the internet. It took him 6+ months before he was able to find the first bug. And he didn't get paid because he wasn't the first one. And it took him a few more months to find the first valid bug and being the first person to report it. It wasn't the critical one. He got paid $50 or $100. But it was a huge milestone. And he kept at it. He was going to school, finishing high school, and doing a lot of the hacking at night. When I met him, it was the year he graduated from high school. And he decided that he would not go to college and he would become a full-time bug bounty hunter. His mom was so worried, and she asked me, I actually met his family. She asked me if I would convince him to reconsider his decision of not going to college. I told his mom, I said, you should be so proud of your son, because at such a young age, he found his passion and he's really good at it. And he's doing really well there. And I believe he will have a bright future doing what he loves and being so good at what he does. And a couple of years later, he earned $1 million on the HackerOne platform. And so the question I have for all of you and all of us is that if we have a high school student knocking on our door because he or she is interested in security, would we give that person a chance, a summer intern? Or would we say, no, what can this person do for us now? A tough question, I understand, but here is such a great success story. The second example I want to highlight is Geek Boy. He's from India. And when he started hacking, he had a full-time IT job. He got into hacking because a good friend of his was doing that. And he saw from afar and it seemed interesting. It's like, oh, maybe I should give it a try. And his friend encouraged him and he learned the same way. The advantage that he had a friend, so he could also ask his friend for advice, for hints, for tips, but he had to work on it himself. And it took 6+ months before he could find the first bug. Didn't give up during that 6 months, working nights and weekends because he had the day job. And then he found his first bug, then he found his second one, then he got paid more and more. Then he quit his day job. He became a full-time bug bounty hunter. I met him a few times at Black Hat and in India, and he earned enough bounty dollars that he was able to buy a home for himself and one for his family. He had bigger ambitions. He not only wanted to do bug bounty, he also wanted to do penetration testing. So I actually learned this later after I decided to join OffSec, that he pursued his OSCP. He spent 6 to 9 months working on his OSCP, getting his OSCP. And I asked him why. You're already so well known, you're doing well, doing bug bounty, why get a certification? What are you trying to prove? He said, well, I want to do bug bounty. I also want to get engagement and doing penetration testing. And I want to be well-rounded. And to do that, OSCP is a really good foundation. That's why I want to get OSCP. So here's another example. If you have somebody who's applying for a job who hasn't done security, but he's in the IT field and is interested in security, would you give that person a chance? Would you hire that person and be willing to train? Now I want to share a little bit about, I want to share 4 profiles of people from OffSec. I think everybody knows what we do at OffSec, right? We train people, not just the tools, the techniques. What's really important is that via the hands-on labs, we train people to develop the hacker mindset or the try harder mindset. Because we believe the mindset is so important. It teaches you what to do when you get stuck and how you deal with all these things that is unknown and you have to figure out where to start. So that is what we do. And we put what we believe in into practice when we hire. When we hire people, we not only look at their experience, their skills, we also look at their mindset. But more importantly, we also look at the potential they have for what they can do in the future at OffSec. Of course, for us, the very important thing is culture fit. But besides that, on the skill set, on the skill side, on the experience side, we really pay attention to the mindset of the person. So here are 4 profiles I want to share, and these are people working at OffSec today. The first one is one of our top content developers. he started security when he was in high school, very much like try to hack. He got into it. He heard about OSCP. He wanted to get OSCP, but he was too young. You know, our certifications, our standard age is 18, but if you're younger, like 16 to 18, we ask for your guardian or parental approval. But he was even younger than that. So we had to make him wait a bit before he could do OSCP. And then after he got his OSCP, he so much wanted to work for us. We said, you're too young. Haven't graduated from high school. We can't hire you. You're too young. You can't work full time yet. As soon as he was old enough, he joined OffSec. Joined OffSec first as a student admin, helping other students, then did a whole bunch of other jobs. And now he's one of our top content developers. So again, the question I would ask, if you have somebody who's so enthusiastic about security, but he or she is still in high school, would you give that person a chance? We did. And we were rewarded with such a great talent. We're still at OffSec. Second profile, and he is a top security researcher at OffSec. I learned this story, his background, only just a few months ago, and it blew my mind. He started as somebody sorting mail in the mail room. He did that actually for a few years. And the mail room was closing down. He had to figure out what to do. He didn't want to go get another job in another mail room. So he was saying, what should I do? And some friends said, hey, I heard security, cybersecurity is a good field to get in. You're young, you can have a great future there. Another friend said, hey, I heard if you want to get a job in security, go get an OSCP. It's hard, but if you can do that, it will increase your chance of getting a job in security. So he did things very similar to the ones before. He went on Google, he joined communities, he read and experimented and worked on his OSCP. And when he got OSCP, he knocked on the door, he wanted to work for OffSec. And we hired him as a student admin, something he had not done before. But we believed with the mindset he had and what he had demonstrated by working through OSCP, we believe he could be successful at OffSec. It's many years later, he's still at OffSec. He's no longer a student admin. So another great success story. Third profile. This is today, he is a technical project manager. He studied in college philosophy. He was a philosophy major, not even IT, not even science. He was into philosophy. And after he graduated, he was always into karate and martial art. He taught for a few years martial art or karate. Then somehow he caught the bug of security, a computer, and he wanted to learn. And for him, he had to work much harder because he didn't have all the prerequisite background to do security. He had to learn a lot of computer stuff before he could do security. And then he heard about OSCP. He started working on OSCP. He worked hard at it, more than a year. And I believe it took him more than one try to get his OSCP. And after he got OSCP, he decided he would join OffSec. He applied for a job. He also started as a student admin, helping other students working through PWK and the OSCP. He did that for a few years. And then because his skill set and his interest so broad, and he wanted to try other things. So now he's our technical project manager, managing a lot of these big scale projects in the company. But you know what? Because he's also so great at teaching, he has taught some of our live classes in front of all the students. So when you have versatile interest and skill set, and you have this technical background as well, you can do so many different things. And we're very happy and very fortunate to have him at OffSec. The last profile, in fact, it's not one person, but it's many people that have similar background, is the role of student admin. These, like I said, these are the people at OffSec that help our students during their journey of earning OSCP. We require that role to have OSCP. So if you don't have it, you actually can't apply. Because the students you're helping, they are getting through that. We think is important. So for that role, we require OSCP. And almost all the people who apply for that role have not been in a technical support role before. And they got OSCP because they were doing system admin, or they were doing network stuff, or they were doing help desk. And they decided, you know what, I wanted to get into security and I'm going to get my OSCP. And after they do, then they want to come and work for us. So we have many people there who started their IT career in a different field and then caught the security bug and then got their OSCP and then joined the company. And my point of this talk, of these profile, is not to do advertising for OSCP. I just wanted to highlight what we do at OffSec for how we hire. Sure, there are certain roles we would love to hire people who not only have the mindset, but also have had relevant experiences. But you know what? We try. And I will say most of the time, we don't get it. So we actually have to be creative. We have to give people a chance. We have to focus on innate what they are really capable of and how we train them to do a great job later. And we have had great successes. So I want to share, hopefully more people would be willing to give this a try. So to summarize, the cybersecurity talent shortage can be solved in part, it cannot be completely, but in part, it can help with the situation if we can focus on finding talent with the kind of mindset we need to succeed in cybersecurity, then be open-minded, be willing, and be patient to invest in them, to train them when they first start, and then to continue to give them training throughout the job and their time with you on the team, and have them work side by side with other security people who are already probably more trained, more experienced. It will do wonders. McKinsey did that, and I feel I'm forever benefiting from that experience. And I think we can do that in security. Thank you.